show a blitz. Romo may be changing the call. High snap over his head. Romo runs it down at the 25 and kicks it. Picks it up and runs left. At the 20, Romo trying to pull McNabb. Gets away from one man. Left to the 40. To the 50. First down. Out of bounds at the 45. For St.
I would get really good at timing the ball during the fumble. If you watch it again, as that ball is behind me, and you know it snapped over my head, whatever, 20 yards, I initially try and grab it and I kick it a little bit. And I was like, okay, you can't do that. Everyone tries to grab the ball right when it's about to hit the ground, or right when they're bending over to grab it, regardless of where the ball is. Always wait for the ball to bounce. As soon as it kicks, at some point it's gonna kick up just barely. As soon as that happens, grab it. And so what you see is right at the last one, I'm about to pick up the ball finally, I wait 1/10 of a second. It's subtle, it's not very big, but I wait to grab the ball until I make sure that I can grab it on the move. And so instead of just falling at it, you wait for that perfect bounce, and then you grab it and you're able to start moving. And when I do that, it allowed my momentum to start going the other direction. Because most of the time you just fall on it and you try and save the ball. But I'd had enough experience with Andre Gerard every day of practice to know that you can move if you don't feel the defensive end right on top of you. And then from there I run around to the side and sure enough I get lucky making a guy miss, and then I knew where the first down was. It was my longest 35, 45 yard run of my life for about 3 yards on the stat sheet, so it was a nice play.
Talk about coming back, that's probably more special than anything else. He just wants to be back with his family and do the things that he probably loved doing when he was younger. And that's going to practice, playing, and being a part of his family. Just he'll call me up at about 1 o'clock and he'll say, hey coach, I'm flying in, I'm gonna drop in today at practice if that's okay. They even ask permission to come to practice. Yeah, no way am I gonna tell him no, but how special is that for him? And he just jumps in drills, he plays, no expectations, he doesn't want to be treated any differently. He just jumps into the guys, whatever drill we're doing, and he just wants to be a part of it. Tony's camp is always about giving back. He doesn't charge for those camps. It's all about doing things for kids so they can afford them.
Everyone's there. The bleachers are packed with people just wanting to come out and see Tony. People aren't going out of town that week. People are coming to the camp because people love to see Tony, and he interacts with everybody. He's there and he's communicating and he's coaching them and he's wanting to make them better. His character and his love for the game just spreads at that camp. It's awesome.
When You see these kids' eyes look at an NFL legend. You know, I was that kid once that looked at these quarterbacks when my dad took me to a game, and I'm just staring in awe, thinking, I don't even know what to say. And that's when you really realize that you can make it big. You can accomplish great things in your life. You know, look at what Tony has done. And it's a way of not only giving back to the community, but also the town and the community celebrating in what Tony has accomplished as well.
I think they see that someone from Burlington went on to be this amazing quarterback, and it makes it real, because this has really never happened in our community before. Tony was the hardest worker there, and in every drill, it was 100%, and the kids see that. They leave that camp thinking every single one of them wants to be the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys or the Green Bay Packers probably, but they just think that, you know, someone from Burlington did this because of hard work, and we can do it too. I think that's really changed everything in this town, you know, kind of put us on the map.
Just so it looks like he's doubled the single receiver. As a quarterback, when I come up there, if that safety gets over there right now, oh, look at that, he's one-on-one out there. I'm gonna throw him the ball every time. He's got 7 guys over here guarding 3. But if you start a little bit, you can be slow. Get to your responsibility, don't be an idiot. But just slowly get over there. Make the quarterback feel that you're gonna double that guy. You're talking to the corner, hey, we're together. You know, whatever it is that you guys are, you know you're by yourself over there corner. And then, boom, you come right over. It makes the quarterback not just go there initially. Absolutely. Hey, you're playing great defensive football.
To know that Tony Romo, from a small town, middle America, was able to have an opportunity to play football at the highest level. And if you don't think you can do it, he did it. The opportunity is there for you to do it too. I think a large part of how Tony got started was when he was a very small child. I'm gonna say 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. I was playing basketball on weekends, and he'd want to tag along, and he would, and he'd see me running up and down the court and playing. And then I'd go golfing, and he'd see me, and he'd want to tag along, and he'd want to play golf. I think that's where it all started, where the seed was planted, where he got his passion for the game. In middle school, he was playing soccer. He wasn't playing football. He loved soccer. I played soccer in high school. We won a couple of state championships here in Wisconsin. I think he wanted to follow Dad's way. Mostly it was just soccer and basketball, and occasionally he'd go and play golf here with Dad all the time. Basketball was his first passion. He was very good at it. Great shooter. Wasn't the fastest kid in the world, or the tallest. He had some stuff that was holding him back from being an NBA player, you might want to say, or even a Division I college player. So he was playing in a basketball league for 7th graders, and one week he lost, and you think, well, that's as good as he's gonna be. He tried his best, he couldn't do any better. And they kept playing, and they kept playing. 3 weeks later, we played the same team that he lost to before. He was a lot better, and they won. That's when I first started to think maybe he had an opportunity to keep climbing the ladder, so to speak. There's not too many kids you see that can go to another level all the time, and he was one of those kids. From a very early age, you could tell that he would go back, figure it out, come back, be better. He would ask questions, I would share information, but the drive and the motivation to do it that's a different story. He did that on his own. He wanted to be better. He wanted to be the best. Every time he played, he made other people around him better too. How many of the great players that you know of can do that?
Well, I think anytime you play or do anything in life for an extended period of time, you're gonna have ebbs and flows to it. So sometimes it'll be going great, other times it won't be going as well. But I genuinely feel like if you're constantly pursuing something, you know, it's almost like a dream. You're constantly trying to achieve something that's far out there. You can have bad days. That's part of just, you know, like I said, the ebb and flow to life, much less sports. Once you know that, it's okay to kind of go through the hills and valleys, and then just knowing the whole time that you're trying to chase this goal or this dream. Ultimately, you'll figure out that it's really just to reach your potential and be how good you can be. And that's, you know, why you keep working, and that's why you just keep dreaming, because you just want to one day achieve what you think you can become.
Well, when Tony began playing in high school, ironically, kind of the story goes like this, is that he started out as a soccer player. Tony played in middle school when I had him as a student. He played all kinds of sports and very competitive and just liked to participate and compete in anything.
Soccer was a different thing. They would practice during the week, then they'd take 1 or 2 JV players and set them up to the varsity to get some experience with the varsity squad.
When soccer began, there weren't enough athletes out to have both the varsity and a freshman JV team.
Well, for whatever reason, Tony never got moved up to the varsity squad. Not once during the year.
And so at that point, Tony said, hey, I'm probably not going to make the varsity lineup here. I don't think I'm going to play much, so I think I would rather go out for football.
So he came to me and says, you know what, Dad? I'm thinking about playing football instead. I said, well, you know, I hated to see him quit playing soccer because I thought he could be very good at that. But his heart wasn't in it because he wasn't getting the opportunity he thought he should have got. So he went and talked to Don Dalton. In the sophomore year, I believe, Don convinced him to come out for the football team. And that's where everything started. Soccer's loss was football's gain.
La historia de este niño empieza en el estado de Coahuila, Musquis, Coahuila. De donde nació la familia Romo fue el rincón de Romo que está en Allende. Yo crecí ahí, fui a la escuela, entonces mi padre muere, mi madre se queda sola con todos nosotros, mi padre tenía hermanos que vinieron y tomaron el rancho de mi padre y se entendieron de repartir la familia entre toda la familia. Yo fui a la escuela en Musquis de chico parroquial.
Yo nací en Robstown, Texas, pero cuando estaba muy pequeña, mi madre se movió para Wisconsin porque ahí tenía una hermana que no quería que nos quedáramos solas. Y de allí me fui a la escuela cuando ya estaba más grande.
Pero a la edad de 9 años mi madre viene y recoge a todos sus niños y nos lleva y nos vamos a vivir a Anáhuac, Nuevo León, por un tiempo. Allá de 7 años ya eres un gran pastor para cuidar las chivas y los animales. No era tan fácil como es aquí, que te tratan como un niño hasta los 15 años. Es que tenías que trabajar. Te inducían a que si no trabajas no comes. Empecé a crecer con grandes sueños. Toda mi familia son ganaderos. Puro rancho es lo que había. Yo crezco en ese gremio y luego, de una manera u otra, de Nuevo León fuimos a dar a Nuevo Laredo. Y yo, francamente, fui nada más a 6 grados. Es todo lo que se podía ir allá. Mi madre quería que yo fuera un gran abogado o una cosa grande. Es que no había la comodidad, se necesitaba dinero. Entonces, de 11 años ya acabaste tú tu educación. Sabes leer y escribir y tienes que irte a trabajar a la labor. Yo boleaba zapatos, shiny shoes, hacía mi dinero porque me te daban 2, 3 centavos en esos años. Qué barbaridad, era mucho dinero. Entonces empecé a crecer, pero con un sueño de un día ser alguien. Nunca lo dejé. Y la perseverancia mía era tan grande. Antonio la tiene, porque no importaba los obstáculos que se presentaran enfrente de mí, yo quería llegar allá y no sabía cómo. Dios sí sabía. Acabé de crecer en San Antonio, Texas. Mi madre muere ahí y tengo un hermano en Wisconsin que se había ido allá de los 30 o 40 para allá, ¿verdad? Fui a dar allá para estudiar el inglés.
Me ocuparon las monjas y allí estuve trabajando para mantener a mi madre y a mi hermano y todo salió pues muy bien y también llegué a ser bastante suficiente de edad, ¿verdad? Para encontrarme este caballero que me pidió que me casara con él y me fue bien. Tenemos muy buen tiempo los dos. Estamos muy contentos.
They live in Dallas, Texas also. They communicate with Tony on a daily basis. They share all of their traditions just as they used to share with me, with Tony. It's fun to see. The biggest thing that my parents gave me was the sense of family. Nothing is more important, I believe, in the Mexican community than family. And that is a tradition that we've held on for many, many years. And it still holds true today with Tony and my other 2 daughters. That was the biggest thing. Work ethic, obviously, big one for us. We're very hard workers, very dedicated, loyal, but faith first. Our faith was very, very important to us because obviously without God, nothing is possible.
Well, I think one of the lucky things was just having the family stability and base that I had. I mean, my mom and dad are 2 Midwest, parents at the core and just hardworking, dedicated, love their kids unconditionally. And me and my dad were like best friends, so it's special.
He played basketball for Steve Brezowitz. They had a very good relationship.
Yeah, I met Tony when I got my first teaching job here. I was very young, 22 years old. Developed an immediate relationship with him because I think I knew as a new hire basketball coach that he was going to be a major part of our program because he just stood out. You kind of look and when somebody's got some talent, and that was something that he was just different than the other kids. Not to say that you knew he was going to be this great, but you knew he was going to have some special characteristics.
Come on, let's get some passes. Good, good, good. Rip, face him, face him, face him. Step out of bounds. Everybody take a look here. Stop dribbling.
My approach probably is way different than when it was when I was 23 years old. I wasn't ready to be a coach at the time. They had a need to fill the position, and I think I was really the only one available.
Come on, Trey. Come on, Trey. Good. Get open, Jake. 2. Good, Trey. Trey! Trey! Ah!
Not that I'm very good now, but I think you can recognize, when you need to back off, when you need to push, and how to do things a little bit differently. And I really didn't know that at the time, so I kind of coached these kids the way my personality was.
Guys, how many dribbles can you get? Don't catch and dribble. We want to use our dribble when we might need to make a better pass. How long can I hold the basketball if I catch it? How many? 2 seconds. Actually, it's a little less than 5, and then you get to call the 5-second call. So you have 1001, 1002, up to almost 5 seconds. Soon as you almost get to 5, now I would have to dribble. I just wanted kids to work hard. I just wanted them to give everything that they had. Those kids allowed, and especially Tony and Steve Tenhage and Ryan Bowman, they allowed me to do that, and they allowed me to, push them, and I'm sure they were ticked at me at times. Tony was one of those kids that liked to play the game. He wanted to keep score, and I wasn't quite competent enough to know that I had to develop drills that allowed that to happen. So if he did something that was kind of boring and tedious and monotonous, it didn't go very well with him. But then when you turn the scoreboard on or you turn it into a competitive situation, then he thrived.
He was coaching Tony as a sophomore on the varsity, and Steve and Tony had that connection from the start. Steve is very competitive, and Tony's got that same competitiveness. They're very much similar in that aspect. Tony is just so fun to watch. Such a great athlete. I mean, everybody knows Tony is the football player, but he was an outstanding basketball player. He was just this kid that just loved the game, loved life, and he's just one of those kids you, in your 20 or 30-year teaching career, you just don't forget kids like Tony, and not because he's a Dallas Cowboy, but because he was Tony.
Steve Brezowitz was the first one to really instill that I had more in the tank, that I could go harder. You always think you're done, you got nothing left, and you do, you got a little bit left inside to give, and I think that was eye-opening for me at that time, and it carried over, later in life.
As a sophomore, playing on the JV squad for football, wasn't that great, really, you know what I mean? He was trying. He could throw the ball now. You could absolutely throw the ball. He was starting to find out about girls, going out and having a good time. He started to wane a little bit away from his sports career or his practicing that he used to do all the time. We sat down, I talked, and I said, I'm gonna love you, Tony. Your mother and I are gonna love you no matter what happens. But God gave you a gift. And if you wanna waste it, it's gonna be your call, not mine. We're gonna love you no matter what, but it's up to you to make the right decision as to where you wanna be in the future.
My dad knew he was wise. He knew what to say, when sometimes to be quiet, when to push you a little bit and when to back off. So, as we get older, then you're just, you need someone that's just there with you through it all and who's not going anywhere. That's a parent's best attribute is when you feel as a kid that good, bad, different, you can let the world down, but your dad's gonna be okay. And that's a special feeling.
Junior year came up, he was vying for the quarterback position of the high school. The coaches started a different kid. There was a competition there a little bit. They went with the other kid and they started him up. Well, like 2 games into the year, 3 games into the year, they lost every game. Steve Gerber, who was the coach at that time, decided to make this change at quarterback and put Tony. Well, from then on, they won their next game, and they went on a winning streak. His junior and senior year, they were a playoff contending team every year. They weren't the best team all the time, but they were pretty good. They contended in their division and in their class, both years that Tony was there.
In 1996, we played 1 year together. I was a senior, he was a junior. He had never started a football game at quarterback prior to that season. We just clicked right away. I mean, there's just so many things that he can do. Me playing receiver and tight end that year, we just developed something really quick, and
it got to the point where we threw it around quite a bit because of that relationship, that trust, and we worked together well. And like I said, he saw the field so well. I'm a bigger type receiver who caught the ball all right, so it was something that worked out well for us. He's a fun-loving, happy-go-lucky guy. We were reciting movie quotes from the program, the 1990s football movie that we watched every Friday before a game, and he was notorious for using several of those one-liners in huddles on the sideline. The competitiveness was there, but we definitely had fun and enjoyed the process, and I think that's an important part of sport, something that we try to drive home to our players all the time, that you gotta have fun playing this, and he definitely did.
Steve Tenhagen, who's now the coach, has been one of my best friends, throughout my life. Just the way that he attacks it, I think people sometimes think that you have to always talk or say things, but we learn a lot by just seeing and watching. And when the people around you do things the right way, there's not a more committed, player, now coach, at his craft than what Steve does. And that rubbed off on me by just seeing it. And now, the competitiveness, me and Steve are very similar in a lot of ways. It just shows you that you can accomplish goals by just doing it every day and caring. He's got a great mind for the game. We go through X's and O's, what makes him special and his unique skill set. But for him, really, it's just that he gets up and does it over and over again. And that resonates with you when you see it.
Como todas las nacionalidades, orgullosos de su país, pero aún vienen buscando una mejor vida a este país porque es el único país de oportunidades y el número 1 en el mundo. Yo estoy muy orgulloso de ser mexicano. Nadie quiere dejar su país donde nació, donde tiene sus raíces, pero hay necesidades en el mundo que nos hacen hacer esas debilidades de nuestro no poder aguantar la pobreza, el abuso y todo eso, y buscas una parte. Toca la casualidad que México es un hermano de este país. Lo hemos sido toda nuestra vida. Cuando España viene, crecemos nosotros, el americano viene de otros países y le enseñamos nuestro lenguaje, nuestra historia y nuestra cultura. Entonces todo el tiempo debemos estar orgullosos de ser lo que somos. Yo soy mexicano y aunque me digan wetback, que me digan cruzaste el río, seguro que sí crucé el río. Me han preguntado que he sido discriminado muchas veces, pero nunca he agarrado un sí porque me discriminen. Les he preguntado, ¿por qué me discriminas? No pude entrar a un restaurante cuando estaba yo joven. Me dijeron, los mexicanos van atrás, y cuando fui para atrás vi mucha gente de color, que en México no se miraba mucho eso, ¿verdad? Y dije yo, esta es discriminación, y le pregunté a mis primos, que ellos hablaban inglés. Dice, no seas bárbaro, ¿no miras el rótulo que dice ahí? No mexicanos. Digo, oye, pero eso está mal. Todo el tiempo me he metido por la justicia. Y lo mismo le enseñé a mis hijos. Antonio me dice, yo les he dicho, abuelo, a todos con los que yo hablo, que si no hubiera sido por ti, yo no estuviera aquí. Yo no fuera Antonio Ramiro Romo. Y entonces yo creo lo que tú crees, que el éxito solamente viene en la vida si lo trabajas.
Amén.
Y si nunca te das de hacerlo y continuar toda tu vida. O sea que la intención de aprendizaje no se acaba. No podemos quedarnos en un círculo, dice. Nada más porque aprendí esta carrera, ahí me quedo. Entonces ahí te vas a quedar. Dice, hay que continuar adelante. Mi nieto está muy auténticamente informado de que en la vida, dice, hay una oportunidad mejor. Dios quiere que yo sea mejor que el pasado y quiere que tenga un futuro más grande que el pasado y más alumbrante, que yo deje a mis hijos esa legión, que ellos también pueden continuar. Y estos son el ejemplo que todos los padres deben de ponerle a sus hijos.
No se me olvida lo travieso que era conmigo, porque era un cariño que hacía. Le gustaba mucho con la escoba asustarme de cuando entraba yo. Y yo corría también a hacerle daño también a él, hacerle travesura, quiero decir, porque era muy travieso. Le gustaba mucho jugar conmigo. Y todavía hasta la fecha, muy curioso. Pero no se me olvida porque ya sé cómo es. Pero es una persona muy fina, muy fina. Hay algo que me pongo a pensar. Salió tarde un poco de la escuela un día. Y era un día tan nevoso, había mucha nieve. Y su papá lo fue a buscar y no lo hallaba. Entonces, porque todavía no salía de la escuela. Lo está buscando y lo está buscando a ver qué. Y con tanta nieve, ¿qué va a hacer? ¿A qué horas va a llegar al lugar donde tiene que ir a ensayar? Estaba muy preocupado, nuestro hijo estaba muy preocupado porque no lo encontraba. ¿Y qué crees? En una bicicleta que halló, no sé si la halló por allí, dónde, pero él halló una bicicleta. En esa bicicleta comenzó a hacer la corrida para donde estaba la fuerza del examen que tenía que hacer con todos los demás del equipo. Era algo que te hace llorar, pensar qué tan grande el amor de hacer algo que tanto le gusta. Eso te hace llorar de ver que es un hombre muy inteligente, muy responsable, una persona que tiene algo que es especial para él. Y por eso nuestro hijo estaba muy asustado porque no lo encontraba. Y él tenía que llegar a ese juego que tenía que aprender. Nosotros lo queremos mucho porque es muy inteligente y no solamente eso, es que es muy responsable. Sabe lo que tiene que hacer o lo que él debe hacer.
Like if you want to be good at something, I think football showed me just the amount of effort and time it takes to really, become great at something. And it carried over. When I was young, it was basketball. I loved it. I'd play every day, all the time. And then as I got a little bit older and you got into college and I got into the NFL, it became football, obviously. But I've always had something I've wanted to wake up and do every morning aggressively with everything I got. That's a gift, I feel like. The fact that you wake up excited about doing something. Life can be grind. It can be a grind. It can be hard. It can be tough from day to day. But having that thing there that you wake up excited about and gives you that sense of like, ooh, that's a gift from the Lord when you're young. I really do feel like that. If you don't dream about it, you're probably not going to do it. That's number one. I call it a joyful obsession. So for me, I had a joyful obsession with throwing the football, getting better, trying to learn the game, dissect it. Obsession's a unique word because it can come across with a negative connotation, but at the end of it, it was joy waking up trying to figure out how to throw this ball better. Like I got joy from it. It was pure joy for me. And so, I was obsessed with learning it and trying to get better. I enjoyed every minute of it. I enjoyed waking up thinking about it, trying to perfect the art of it. And for me, it wasn't really hard work. It was just what I wanted to do, but I was obsessed with doing it. And it provided me joy. And so in Outliers, they basically talk about how people who are gifted, whether you're a violinist or whatever, they don't just work harder, they work so many more hours. And I would argue they love it. It can't just be work every time. It's gotta be like a fascination, that makes you love it. So I somehow had that.
I don't think anybody saw that he was going to be an NBA basketball player. I don't think anybody thought that he was going to be an NFL football player. I think they thought he was a great high school athlete and that he was going to have a great college career wherever he went. Could have he, maybe by the time he was a senior year, play basketball somewhere? Yeah. Tony had already signed with Eastern. He was committed to Eastern. He's true to his word, and I think he knew maybe deep down, and again, I haven't talked to him about this ever, but I think maybe deep down he knew that was probably somewhere where he was going to have a higher ceiling long term.
We did everything we could to push Tony towards coming to Whitewater, and He had the opportunity to play both basketball and football, and at that time he was very interested in both of them.
I remember a lot of the conversations. He wasn't quite sure what level he was going to be in. He was just a high school kid that could really just make some plays. He was just one of those backyard kids that you just want on your team because he was probably going to win. I think when you get to college, when you have everybody else they're a little bit faster, they're a little bit better, they're a little bit more skilled, and he wasn't quite ready for that level at that time. But Tony, as he's proven, just needs a little bit of seasoning, needs a little bit of decision making to say, you know what, I'm going to try this. He just makes it work, and when you look at everything that he does, it just seems like it's the same story, whether it's his high school career, his college football career, his NFL career, his broadcasting career. It's always the same story. He just decides that I think I can be pretty good at this, and the sucker makes it happen. It's how he's probably become a great golfer, and that's why he beats us all in table tennis when we play. It just ticks us all off because he just knows that he wants to be good at something, and he knows that he's going to be better than you at it, and that's why he's achieved greatness.
There's almost, I feel like there was something inside me that always had this like future version of myself out there that you want to try and obtain or be one day. And you know, even though you failed today, I really believe that it feels like it's okay because you're like, but I got better. The winning and losing comes and goes and stuff, but the real joy comes from improving and getting better. And so that's why when you have the downs and you're, you know, down and out almost, you could say, at those dark moments when you failed or didn't live up to what your own expectations are of yourself, you're really fine coming back simply because you're always trying to be this different version, this best version that's out there. And I'm coming, and I got better. I may have lost, but I learned something there. And now I know where I'm going, and that won't happen again.
I remember distinctly that he said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. I talked to his dad about this, and he and his dad sat down, and his dad said, well, you gonna try to be a quarterback or not? And I just remember that moment, kind of like I remember his jump in high school. He also made that jump his sophomore year to say, okay, if I'm gonna be a quarterback, I'm gonna go after this. And from that point on, he said he lifted harder. He worked harder than anybody out there. He was the first one on the field, the last one to leave. And he just decided that he was going to give it everything that he had.
Naturally, I wanted our friendship and teammate bond to continue, but had a scholarship offer that he took advantage. And I don't know if we'd be sitting here today if he went and played at a Division I program. I just don't know that would be as realistic as it was.
Tony's career at Eastern, there weren't a lot of downs. Tony had just an extraordinary 3 years at Eastern. When you look at his numbers, they were eye-popping.
When I first started at center, it was my junior season, and it was his second season as starting quarterback. And I remember some of the warmest games. When you're 300 pounds and you're playing on Saturday afternoon, it gets pretty warm. There's times where you really don't want to have 40 play drives. He used to do this thing where this is the moment we knew we had a good quarterback. He would say, hey guys, give me 3 or 4 seconds of protection on this play. And we're off the field. We're gonna go sit down. And we all looked at each other in the huddle and we'd be like, okay, all right, not like we weren't trying to begin with. We don't know what he's doing. All we know is our job, and we're out there passing off, and 4 or 5 seconds go by, and all of a sudden we see the pass go out in the air and touchdown. And we're like, hey, we start celebrating. The second time is when we realized, okay, he means business. He actually means what he's saying. Because he always said it with a smirk on his face, so we never really knew if it was real or not. And then after that, we realized, holy cow, he means what he says. If you give him a little extra time, he's gonna make a great throw here and we're gonna get off the field. To have that kind of leadership and that kind of expectation of yourself before the snap even happens, that you already know you're gonna make a good throw. We're talking about Division I colleges here, so that's good.
We were very competitive with each other. I think it allowed us to push each other, so we both wanted to be the best on the field, whether it was practice or a game.
He's a very resilient person. Like I said, he took hits, get right back up. He didn't talk about what just happened. It was more like, let's learn from what happened and move on. I can't fix it.
That was, I think, in Tony's senior year. That year, he won the Walter Payton Award for Best 1AA football player in America, which is a great milestone also.
I was trying to be that guy that you can eventually be, that you want to be one day, the best version of yourself that you can see that's out there.
I met Tony in 2002 or 2003. A friend had referred him to us at IMG, International Management Group. So I spoke with Romero and Joan.
I want to represent you, Tony. You just need to go down to the Voluntary Institute in Bradenton, Florida, and our talent evaluator for quarterbacks is down there.
When he was down there, this coach called me back and said, boy, this kid is really something. He has a chance to be special.
He thought he could play at that level, but there was a lot of uncertainty. He knew he had some flaws in his game that he had to improve. I would talk to him a little bit during that time. He's like, Coach, I'm not that far off of these guys. And that helped him, I think, gain some confidence. He was able to say, if these guys are there, I'm not that far off.
He was a great student. He wanted to learn and worked like crazy. And we had some great players down there at the time, and Tony was with every single one of them. And he learned just very simple things, hand placement, arm placement, throwing zip on the ball. He had an unbelievable touch even back then. And so he worked diligently to better himself in the draft. He not only went to the draft, but actually they asked him to be one of the throwers to all the wide receivers, which was kind of unusual. And that's how our relationship started out.
He came back, Ken said, all right, we're going to represent you. We think you're a 5th round pick.
He invited me to come to his last game, which I believe was against Murray State. And in typical Tony fashion, there was about 1:10 left or so, and he drove the team 80 yards for a touchdown, which I thought was phenomenal. And I was pretty excited about his play, and all of a sudden, Tony Romo jumped out of his seat and sprinted to the top of the stadium. And I looked at Joan and I said, Joan, could I have possibly said something? She said, no, he's just nervous. And I thought, gosh, there's less than a minute left now. What could go wrong? And then she proceeded to tell me that their defense wasn't very good, and they've lost several close games like this. And wouldn't you know, the other team drove down the field and kicked a 61 or 2 yard field goal to win the game. And so I thought to myself, this kid never gives up. He was down, drove his team to win, thought he had the game iced. The defense only had to have one stop, and they would have won the game, and of course they didn't. But that told me a lot about Tony, his determination, his leadership.
So draft day came on, and we went through the first day, and the Cowboys were calling and wanted to know if anybody else had called. No, nobody else had called. So they held off. The second day, Cowboys kept calling again. Anybody called? No, nobody's called. Said, all right, we'll call you back.
And my wife and I and my family were at his draft party too. And I mean, obviously a disappointing day, a very tense day, especially that last day that he didn't get drafted. But I think he would probably be the first to tell you that was a blessing in disguise.
Finally, the draft got over with, and the Cowboys called, Denver called, Arizona called. Arizona didn't want to get off the phone. That was pretty funny. Dallas convinced Tony to go to their place, and Tony thought that it was the best opportunity there. You had a Hall of Fame coach there, and that's not putting anything, because Denver wanted him to, and Mike Shanahan was coaching at Denver.
There's always a reason that he goes places and does things and makes decisions, and I think the decision to go to the Dallas Cowboys wasn't just something that he just thought, I want to wear a star on my helmet. He knew that he would have a chance to make the roster. He had done his research. He knew where the places are that he could compete. He didn't predict some of the things that happened to get on the roster, but I think he knew that this was probably a good place to get into the front door to have a chance at it.
Now, there was a lot of competition there. Drew Henson was there, Quincy Carter was there, Vinny was there, Drew Bledsoe. You had to get by all of these guys. Fortunately for him, he overcame all of that and became their starter.
I liked him just because he was the kind of kid that got in the dirt and scribbled the play in high school, and he was the guy at Eastern Illinois that just kept the team in every single game, and the people closest to him, his offensive linemen, loved him. They loved the type of player he was, how gutsy he was, how confident he was. You know, some people think he's cocky. He's not cocky, he's confident. He's confident in knowing what's possible. That spreads in the locker room, and particularly in the offensive group. He's developed into a great player. He knew he wasn't 100% going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL right off the bat, but he told me he was going to work on it until he did become a starter. And you know, that first year he got stronger in the weight room. He wasn't much of a weightlifting guy in college. He became a weightlifting guy. He got stronger the second year. He studied the playbook. He was so knowledgeable in the playbook, he was able to play in that third year. And of course, the fourth year was the guy that's going to be, in my mind, a NFL Hall of Famer.
Tony was never drafted. Sometimes you gotta make lemonade with the lemons they give you. This is it. You didn't get drafted. But there's teams out there that want you. Now what are you gonna do about it?
Dallas secured Tony, and so he went there, and of course we signed a 2-year contract for less money than we would have at 2 other places because it was the best place for him. He developed nicely his first 2 years under the radar. No one really realized what quite a talent they had until the third year. And of course he signed 2 2-year contracts so that when he got the chance to play and did what we knew he could do, I think his parents and myself and a few others knew he could be successful. He ended up getting a really nice payday after his 4th season, and then again later in his career.
Tony's first couple of years in the NFL, I think, were definitely needed to just sit back and learn. He was lucky enough to have some great role models to do that with, not only coaches like a Sean Payton that would take him under his wing and teach him the trade of an NFL quarterback, how to go about yourself, how to go about business, how to approach the game, how to approach practice. And I think he needed that in order to get where he needed and wanted to be. The neat thing is I knew he wasn't ready. Some kids think that they should be playing or they want that chance. He knew that he just needed a little bit more time. I think it was that Giants game that he took over for Drew Bledsoe. That was a definite moment that I'll never forget watching that game. I just remember my heart pounding, knowing that, oh my gosh, this is it. This is real. Because at that point, he hadn't thrown a pass in the NFL.
Now, I went down to Dallas quite a few times when he was a backup under Drew Bledsoe. I was actually at the game in which he ended up taking his first start. Now, countless times I'm in the car, and we walk through the tunnel and nobody's even saying his name. I have been right next to him all the way through that, and no one's saying Tony. Everyone's saying everybody else's name, and we just walk right through, totally ignored. I disperse, I go up to the stadium and I watch the game from the stadium. I'm going nuts. I am so excited to high five him and meet him at the tunnel, and I'm waiting at the gate for him to wave me through, and here he comes, one of the last ones out because he has some interviews he has to do for the first time. Normally he's one of the first guys out. He waves me through, and we come through, and I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, you played awesome. He's like, we gotta get out of here, We get into his SUV, people are starting to run through the gate. And they're blocking his SUV, shouting at him. He had his window down at the time. He had to raise his window up. And I think all of us were just in shock of what was going on, because this is his first time anybody's even really said his name with any kind of purpose. And I remember getting out of the parking lot eventually after security kind of cleared a path, and everybody was real quiet. And I just remember saying, wow. That's what your future is going to be like every game.
You don't really know how good you're going to be or how good you are until you play. And so for me, it's like you're nervous, you're excited about playing, but you got to go prove it to yourself as much as everybody else. And you're only afforded so many chances when you're a free agent. So that's why you prepare so hard, so you can be ready when your time comes. I think the first time you get out there, you're just nervous and your brain doesn't work normal functioning at that moment. The first time you ever go in a game, it's almost like it's, what happened? I can't think or feel in my mouth. I need water. That's the greatness. It's such a big deal to you. It's like your whole life. Here it is, right in your hands. Don't fail.
Obviously a little surreal. You're sitting and watching like, hey, there's a guy that we used to play with. Now he's starting for the Dallas Cowboys. What you see on Sundays in terms of him running around and high-fiving and slap is the same Tony that he was when we played back in high school. To say that we're excited, to say that we're glued to the TV, the NFL packages that we had to get throughout the years so we could make sure that we could watch all of his games. Yeah, that was all part of it, and it never really went away.
When you win, it's the highest feeling you could possibly imagine. When you lose, it's the lowest feeling that you can possibly imagine. So you have to be able to find a medium in there so that you're never, peaks and valleys are never that bad. Tony was mostly responsible for learning how to do that. He got that from his coaches. Bill Parcells was a big help for him. Other plays, I mean, my gosh, you know, San Francisco, that was a big one. Going to Seattle with DeMarco and Dez. Going to Kansas City, Miles Austin, breaking the record for receiving yards. In overtime, touchdown. The spin move on J.J. Watt. Atlanta trying to get him down on the ground. He's moving around like a mosquito. You can't get him down. How many times did he win games in the fourth quarter? Go ask the Giants. They know about that.
I was at the game, and I remember it very well. And it's a memorable game for a couple of reasons. First, the stadium they were playing in is no longer there. Secondly, that injury is a particular dangerous injury, having a lung punctured. Third, it was a very must-win, and they needed Tony. I mean, you know, they needed somebody that could make the throws, that could make the calls, that could rally the team. And this is what I'm talking about, rallying the team. You can say, let's do it, when you know a guy has an injury as significant as that is, and he gets back on the field, scores a touchdown, that's the definition of a leader. There's no one on that locker room that came out of that game that didn't realize what they had in number 9 playing quarterback.
Well, I can tell you that it was immensely difficult. I mean, when you are putting in, you know, his life work into a season, and something like a broken collarbone, repetitive, you know, injury stalls you, it definitely plays tricks on you because you've worked tirelessly to critique the issues that you've had, or, you know, the team is building around you. It was tough for him.
I think when it comes to, obviously, professional sports, the fans are very passionate about their teams and the players that participate, but sometimes it's easy to forget that they're people first and they're athletes second. I think it's even worse in football because there's a helmet. You don't really see the face. And when you do, you just kind of realize that they're a person too. They all come from somewhere. They all come from a beginning. And that's the hardest thing. And I think it was hard for us to watch. And I don't know if it's mistreated, but I guess you feel it's mistreated because of the scrutiny that they're under. Maybe he underperformed, or people thought he underperformed, or if the team didn't do as well as what people had hoped or what was expected. I think that's hard. It's hard on anybody. When you know somebody as a person first and an athlete second, you have a different perspective. It's helped me help teach my kids that, hey, yeah, athletes make mistakes. They're not perfect. They are people. They have families. They have other things going on in their lives. But it's a good life lesson that a lot of people just don't get the opportunity to have.
It's a responsibility to be the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, and you can affect so many lives. I mean, the people within, you know, the coaching staff, the players. I mean, the more you win, everyone's life is better. The more that you lose, everyone's life, and I mean, like, their jobs are in jeopardy. And so without knowing it, you're directly affecting wives, kids that are living there that have to move if you're not playing well. And so you feel that responsibility and the weight of that in a good way. That makes you really want to commit and be great at your craft. And, you know, I took that responsibility serious, and, you know, I'm going to do the same thing at CBS. It's important. And it's fun to try and be great at something.
The playoffs is underway between the Cowboys and the Packers. Time over the middle. Got a man at the 35. Beasley cannot find the stick. He's a yard and a half short at the 32. All right, 4 downs now.
Dez was only one-on-one probably 5 times in that football game. And so anytime you get an opportunity for a big play, now the problem is it's, you know, played on the sideline, and it's an aggressive decision and throw. But if you got a shot at something big in life, you got to take a shot at it. You can sleep at night knowing you swung.
When he made the catch, the whole Cowboy suite that we were in erupted, and it was like craziness. And you could see to your right and to your left, the Green Bay fans were somber. And then all of a sudden the red flag came out from Mike McCarthy. And then when it was overturned, it was completely changed, the set of emotions. Now we were somber, they were celebrating, and the catch got ruled an incomplete pass.
After review, it has been determined that the receiver did not maintain.
Part of the reason I let it go, though, was all the years of practice, all the time with Des. You know, we'd thrown that 1,000,000 times. And so you feel like it's really not as low percentage as you think, because it's one-on-one, there's no safety help, I can put touch on the ball. And, you know, Des goes up and makes arguably one of the greatest catches, you know, in a playoff game that you'll ever see.
He was very sad. He had given it everything he possibly could. He felt bad for his teammates, his coaches, as though he'd let them down, which he didn't, but knew that he'd given everything he possibly could in order to get that game won.
You could argue that it's the best throw I've ever made in football, but it's not, because we didn't have a catch, and you don't win the game. And then you could say Des, it's his best, you know, catch he's ever had. But, you know, stuff happens and you move on.
There was no excuse. There was no blaming an official. There was no Des should have caught it. It was just as a matter of fact, yeah, you know, Green Bay beat us today. And then it was off to next year already. It's off to what? We're gonna bounce back, we're gonna put more work into it, and we're gonna see where we get to next year. That's how it is every single time, and always was with him, and you know, probably a good chance that's how it's always gonna be.
Really them coming back and saying it's a catch or not, I mean, what's it gonna do? We're gonna get a little trophy that we should have won the game? I mean, who knows how it turns out. At the end of the day, I think I've been pretty fortunate. Obviously, I've wanted to win a Super Bowl, and I'm gonna have to live with that the rest of my life. But I'm not sitting at night saying, "Boy, I was robbed" or anything. I mean, are you kidding? Yeah, I've been as fortunate as any human being and as lucky as anybody.
Going into the 2015 season, he put in as much hard work as I have ever seen somebody in order to get ready for the next season, because he knew he had a good team coming back.
He's got all the pieces in place. He's got Des at receiver. You know, they've just drafted a great rookie running back and fourth player picked overall in Ezekiel Elliott. So everything is falling into place. They've got a great team. They're picked as one of the favorites to get to the Super Bowl and have a good chance to win it. In the preseason game against Seattle, he gets caught from behind just prior to going into a slide, compacts the spine, fractures his lower back, and my heart just sank. You know, I just felt sick for him. Didn't know how hurt he was or he would be. And of course, he gets up and walks off after a while, and so you're hopeful that he's going to be okay.
He suffered another back injury. He had to go back and get surgery, but he went back into the weight room. He went back into the rehab.
It's hard to watch Tony go through the injuries that he went through, especially because they were so freakish. Those aren't injuries that, you know, people would say, well, he's out of shape. Those are things that you can't foresee as far as football injuries go. Me going through some injuries, I know how hard it is to go through the therapy and everything and the grind of it to get back every season and then to have it cut short because of a crazy injury. Tony's definitely a fighter. You're not going to find anyone that's going to fight any harder than him, especially when it comes to a game like football where he loves so much.
The Cowboys selected Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott for the 2016 season. And Tony got stronger and stronger, and towards the end of the season, he was itching to get on the field. The coaches, you know, decided to stay with Dak. They went into the playoffs, and obviously they lost to the Green Bay Packers.
Seasons are fleeting. Games become more precious. Chances for success diminish.
Well, I wrote the speech thinking mostly like, A, you need to say something, just because there are so many questions about it for all the teammates. You know, for me, you know, I hadn't talked. You just got the team's winning and they're playing good, and you know, football is the ultimate meritocracy. And I kind of wanted to shed a light for a little bit, the world too, to see what it's like as a football player in those situations, and just try to be honest and tell people what you really feel like, and yet what's the right thing to do. You know, ultimately at the end of the day, doing the right thing isn't always what you want to do sometimes, but it probably is the right thing. And you know, just trying to put it down on words and then go out and just say it, and then it can end there. You don't have to keep going over it and over because it would have continued on and on every day part of the week.
I wasn't surprised by it. I would say I would probably have been more emotional than anything, just knowing that it was real for him. Unfortunately, it just took those 3 years of reoccurring injuries for him not to be able to come back from it.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to come and tell you it's been a crazy 48 hours here, and Me and my family have felt the outpouring of support and love from all of you. It's been overwhelming, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So I want to say thank you, and we have a lot to think about here going forward, but we'll see what happens. Till then, I'm just going to keep listening to Bob Dylan.
Hey, enough with this heavily veil.
That's my wife. She just loves me unconditionally.
It was such a touching video. I don't think many people could watch that video without tearing up, especially if you knew Tony and you knew what a great guy he was. My daughter was going through a tough time in volleyball at that time. She wasn't playing as well as she'd hoped and things like that. And I said, listen, look at what Tony did. He doesn't stop fighting. He just put this out to America. What you're going through, you will get through it. Look at him. He is such a good example for us.
Listening to him speak, it actually brought a tear to my eye because I knew how tough that was for him to say. You didn't have to be a Tony Romo lover. You didn't have to support the Dallas Cowboys. You could watch that and see that was heart, it was true, and there was really no other message other than this is hard, but it's the right thing to do, and I'm taking the back seat. And I felt it was needed because there was so much unrest in the media that he let it be Dak's team, and I knew that was probably the hardest thing he's ever been able to say.
It's not just about you, it's bigger than you. And at the same time, you can think about others, you can do the right thing. You're gonna fail, you're gonna mess up. Doesn't make you any less, it's just part of going through life. And then from there, you can learn and just keep grinding, and then you'll wake up one day and you'll be hopefully proud of yourself.
Here we are in his 15th year, 16th year of his football camp. Never has he changed or portrayed to be something that he's not. Sometimes you get people that are successful and they do change, and that's unfortunate. But that's never really been the case with Tony. He's always been a pretty small town guy.
I think Tony gets hit a lot in a small town because there's not something named after him or this big project that he's done. And everybody thinks, why isn't he doing this? Tony gives, and nobody else knows that he gives. Nobody else needs to know. So he does things that nobody can see, and he's always done that. It's never been about the money. I think that was a complete bonus for him. He got to play a sport and do something that he loved, and he got paid for it and was able to make beyond a nice living for it. But it was never about that.
This camp's been going on for 15 years, and I've been to a lot of them. And he takes a genuine interest in the kids, I think for two reasons. One's because he's from Burlington, but the other is he sees his little kids running around now. He's got 3 little boys.
Tony is steadfast in his relationships. He's always been a Burlington kid. He loves coming back here. And I think so loyalty is a real great quality that he models for us. And it's a lesson that I can recall. It's a good feeling when you've had an opportunity to work with someone and continue to work with them and have a relationship with them, that you see those qualities and it reminds you that as a person that you need to do those things as well. And I'm just real proud of the way he handles himself, especially in difficult situations.
A lot of people put legacy on wins and losses and whether or not, obviously as a quarterback, on whether you win the Super Bowl or not. And I think there's so much more to a legacy, and I think he's leaving that. I think this camp is a perfect example of that he's retired from the NFL right now. He doesn't need to continue to do this thing. He's giving back to this charity. He's involved in this organization or some event. So he has done a great job throughout his career, and I think he'll continue to do that, obviously.
I would say that Tony leaving football now and changing careers has left a legacy in football of always putting forth your best effort, always giving your best no matter what you're doing. His relationships with his teammates, Witt and some of those guys that have been together with him for a long time, they will tell you about what a quality character he is and some of the great attributes that he has. So I think his legacy will be more about being loyal to the Cowboys just as they have been to him. His legacy will always be doing the best that he can and bringing others up with him.
As far as the player, what creates a legacy, I don't really know. Is it statistics? Is it he's a quarterback who never won a Super Bowl? I mean, there's been great quarterbacks that didn't get their opportunity to win a Super Bowl too, you know? So I think that's what a lot of media portrayed, a legacy at that position. I think there's more to it. When you talk about the grind, you talk about the teammate that you are, the way you treat the people in your organization and the people in the area. I think that would define my idea of his legacy more than how many touchdowns he threw or how many games he won.
I think that legacy is how he does in the community there in Dallas as well as here. And I think that he has a sterling reputation in both places. That's, in my mind, a legacy. You can go home where you started and everybody love and admire you. You can go back to where you did all your work and they're appreciative of your accomplishments.
I think Tony's legacy is going to be one of a small town kid. Came out of basically not much in training as far as football was concerned growing up, but overachieved way beyond anybody's imagination, set records that still stand to this day with the Cowboys. 14 years, one team, not too many people get to do that. We're all very proud of it.
One of the things that kind of sticks out to me is at Tony's wedding, and Roger Staubach and Troy Aikman walk up to me. Now I'm dressed, you know, because I was part of the wedding, and they asked me who I am. And I told them I was Tony's center from college, and the four of us began to talk. And Roger, speaking of humble, who carries a lot of records for Dallas Cowboys, as well as Troy Aikman, who has several Super Bowl rings amongst other records. Roger begins to tell me and my father that Tony's the best Dallas Cowboys quarterback that has ever donned the uniform. And I'm listening to him say it, and I'm like, you're Roger Staubach though. And you're Troy Aikman. And I'm listening to it, and of course, because you're speaking to these very high prolific like type of passers, people I collected their trading cards when I was growing up. I'm still just listening, but I'm not really, it's not processing. And then Troy begins to say he's the most accurate quarterback by bar none that I've ever seen. He's like, he's way more accurate than I am. When I hear that, when I heard that coming from these two passers, that's when I realized he's leaving his legacy even on the people that laid the foundation for Dallas. And that changed my whole outlook of, I hope he's playing well, I hope he, to no, he is. He's doing it. Because now I'm not teammates with him anymore. I'm watching him. I'm a fan. I once was a teammate, knew what it was like. I don't know what it's like on the NFL side of things, other than living it through him. And from hearing it from those type of individuals who were around the game their entire lives, that's when I realized that Tony's legacy is there. It's marked. It's going to be remembered. He's going to be talked about for the next 50 years.
Well, I think the ups and downs of sports is a good thing. Really, it kind of teaches you about life a little bit, and just the roller coaster of emotions that you go through, playing in one game, much less one season or a career in football. And for kids, a lot of time it's being a part of a team and having to adapt and then work with others and then try and get better and improve. I mean, all these things are great for life, and sports is a great lesson to teach you how to work with others, how you're going to figure out how to get better. Football in a lot of ways has provided my life, and where I started in Burlington, you never know where you're going to go or end up, but all of a sudden here you are, fast forward 20 years later, and you got 3 little boys and got a beautiful wife, a great family, and live in Dallas. A lot of that starts with football at the beginning, and pursuit of a dream, really, and then you look where you're at one day. I'm not in the whole regrets world thing. I think it just kind of happens the way it's supposed to, and at the end of it, no one's perfect. No one does things the right way all the time. God's got you. You go through the ups, you go through the downs, you come out on the other end. Hopefully, if you're lucky, you got a bunch of people around you that love you, that are there with you. Then you've done it probably the right way.